shorty, what your name is? Do you have a man? Who you came with?
Welcome back, y'all. Street Academy Podcast, where we keep one foot in the academy and one foot in the streets. And we back, and we back, and we back.
It's like this little shimmy, Amber.
Yeah.
Man.
Had a little frog in the thrizzo. Welcome back, y'all. Street Academy Podcast. We appreciate y'all joining us, liking, subscribing, commenting. As y'all can see, we back to three folks again. Yeah. So what we talking about? We talking about being a hater? Is that what we talking about today, y'all?
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And what I realized was that you have to own your story. You have to own your path. Your path is your path. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of leads me to another question. We can answer that if if you want to answer this question, Amber. But what I started thinking about was your path is your path. You can't quite compare yourself to somebody else. You have to honor your own voice, honor your own style, honor your own path. And the more you do it, when you become successful, it means so much more because you did it in a way that you could look in the mirror and say, like, yeah, I didn't sell myself, or I didn't have to become somebody else to be here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think Jay-Z has a line where he says something like, I can look inside the mirrors of the Palace of Versailles and still be all right with what I see. You know what I'm saying? It's something along those lines where no matter what, I became a billionaire. And I know y'all don't like Jay-Z and the capitalism and all of that. But in general,
another episode.
Right. But I think in general, what he's saying though is regardless of the fact I didn't have to do things the way that other people did them, I stayed true to myself and what I believed. I stayed true to my culture. I stayed true to my street, to the streets. I stayed true to whatever it is that I wanted to stay true to. And I'm okay with that, right? Whether other people think he did or not, that's a totally different, idea. But that's how he felt. And so, and I kind of took that as well. But that does lead me to another overarching question, which is it okay to be a hater sometimes?
You know my answer. A resounding yes.
Is it okay to be a hater? Because for a long time we've always said, stop being a hater. Don't be a hater. Player haters, PhD, player hating degree. You know what I'm saying? We've been saying that for a long time in our culture. But let's be honest. Sometimes we hate on each other. And sometimes it's okay to hate on somebody a little bit because maybe, and I actually have a story to tell about one of y'all in this podcast right now. So I'm gonna tell that story in a second after Amber gives her response. But I do have a story to tell about hating and hating on somebody on this podcast, and you'll be surprised on who I'm talking about.
Okay.
But is it okay to be? Sometimes we gotta hate, and sometimes we do hate. On if we're honest, have you ever hated on somebody? You like in real life, like I'm hating right now. But is that okay? I don't know.
I love that question. I love that question, John. Oh my goodness. Well, okay, let me say my little assimilation story. It's a quick one, and then we can go into the hating ass. Because I feel like when you say hating, you just gotta you gotta haters aren't just haters, they're hating ass haters.
So you got haters and you got hating ass niggas.
It's like hating ass haters. It's like, I don't know, it's a combination. But mine, I feel like when I went up to Boston, went to Harvard or whatever, the experience was so racially different for me. I just felt like I did feel like a fish out of water for real. I felt like a Negro out of Atlanta. Negro to Atlanta is fish as to water, is Amber as to Harvard. That is what happened. I remember just listening to everyone be articulate. And I think that's when I began to notice my accent more. And I began to notice, because people would ask, oh, where are you from? And I'm thinking I'm using my best Oprah voice. I'm thinking, how can you tell from this universal accent that I'm using and all of this pronunciation that I'm giving you right now? And immediately people are like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, dang, it's not working. And so I think there was a period where I was definitely trying to use this tone and use this voice. And definitely I started listening to white people more, and they always did that thing like this. Every time they would explain things in class, they would always go up in their voice and talk like this and use that intonation. And I was like, is this how smart people talk? Is this how people explain things all the time? And this is what makes sense. And this is what the smart people talk like. And so I remember there was a short window of time where I think I started emulating that sound when I was explaining things in class or around folks, because that was I think I began to process that as the tone of the academic or the tone of the person who's really thoughtful or whatever. But I started getting sick of it, and I realized like this isn't me. And I think the more that I became okay with myself as a Southerner in a Northern place, the more comfortable I became with myself as a Black woman, just all of the different ways that I was grappling with my identity up there, I let that go. And I just began to talk more freely as myself. I think um I think after I left too, yeah, I feel like every year that I've been away from Boston or since graduating, I feel like I've become more and more comfortable in my Blackness. And so, and I think coming now, having moved back to Atlanta, but still working at Harvard, I think I'm even more like, I'm me. I'm who I am. I'm not apologizing for anything. I'm not apologizing for my tone. I'm going to use I'll use my slang sometimes because this is my language. I'm trying to pay more attention to the gatekeeping of certain phrases, because we all know what happens when non-Black people are inspired by Black slang. It just, you find it on Zaxby's commercials and all kind of things. It looks crazy. And it's like, this is so out of context.
Oh, that Kroger commercial, getting low, low, low. You seen that when they be using when they use that fluoride?
We don't have Kroger up here, so you know I miss I miss Kroger, I miss Publix, all of that.
Oh no.
And so all of that kind of stuff, I'm just like, let me embrace who I am. And so I feel like that was my assimilation period when I was talking like this and using that tone, like all the white girls and all of the rest of the people who ask questions in academic settings. So yeah, that was mine.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see
For
that.
sure. I don't know if that like cadence has fallen out of favor. I feel like I don't hear it as much. They still do.
You feel like it's not a thing anymore?
Yeah.
Or like talking
and
like this and making sure, like all of that. Like, yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, it's also been like a whole pandemic and I haven't been in spaces where people would be talking like that. So maybe it's just me missing from those spaces as opposed to the actual cadence being missing.
Right. That's interesting. Well, I will say this in terms of assimilation and then also feeling like even when we assimilate and even when we're trying to find ourselves trying to be like these people or be like, you know, those people or whatever, and then even putting ourselves around like people who are successful, right? I remember when Amber, when you first had when I think you had applied to Harvard around the time I was taking the GRE or something like that. It was something around the time we were both doing the same things. And I think somebody else as well was applying to like a master's program. And so we was all doing our thing. And I remember specifically the day. It was the day that you told me that you got in. I was doing some work, so I was sleep. I was living in a 2-bedroom townhome at the time. I was in the guest room. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Jackie. And you remember this, Amber?
Yeah.
Okay. It was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I might be like half sleep, half awake or something. Something happened. And I get a phone call and it was Amber. And I'm like, why Amber calling me like 2 in the morning? I pick up the phone. I'm like, hello? And she said, John, I did it. I got into Harvard. And I was like, what? I just got the email. Right. And so we
Mhm.
both yelling crazy. Like, yo, this is crazy. But I ain't never known nobody that I like that I could, you know what I'm saying? No, not no black person to get into an Ivy League school. So I was like, yo, this is crazy. That's my dog. It's so man, this is crazy, yo. I'm proud of you. No, whatever you need, dog, I got you. And then, you know, started the whole movement, everything. So I remember that vividly. And then I remember getting off the phone and I'm like, man, this is crazy. I'm telling people. And I was super, super proud, genuinely proud, right? And then as I'm going through my own process, I'm like, you know what? This is inspiring.
Yeah.
If Amber, and I already know that Amber's a very unique, genius, very smart person. So I wasn't surprised. I was just happy. Right. But it also made me think like Amber don't come from money. Amber don't come from like a long line of like, you know what I'm saying? These Ivy League people, you know what I'm saying? First generation in a lot of ways. So I was like, man, if she could do it, man, I could do it. Right. Let me try. So I remember I was looking up programs and I saw this like, I think it was like an African-American, it was like a joint PhD in African-American studies and like sociology or African-American studies in law or something like that. And I was like, and at the time I was considering going to law school and it was at Princeton. And I said, okay, all right, I'm gonna apply. I'm gonna do this. And I think I asked you for your not your cover letter. I asked you for your letter of interest. And I was like, and you sent it to me. And I looked at, I was like, and also when I read that letter of interest, I was like, this makes so much sense. This shit is so dope. Because it was funny, it was interesting. It wasn't like everybody else's that like kind of lays out everything you've done in this very form. It was who she was. It was very unique. It was like if I was on their committee and I read all of these other ones, and then I read this one, I'm like, all right, let's read this one. By the second paragraph, I'll be like, this it, like this is interesting. It was very interesting. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do mine like this. And so I created my own little way. Applied to Princeton. Was it Princeton or yeah? It was one of them. I think it was Princeton. So I applied everything. Waited. I got my response. Rejection. Right. And I was like, well, who did I think I was to try to go to Princeton? Like, I ain't from, you know what I mean? But I'm like, but Amber did it. How come I couldn't do it? And for a split second, I became a hater. I became I was hating. It wasn't hating like I didn't want her to have it, but it was hating like I had to grapple with again, and it became a long history of grappling with. You have to own your story. That's Amber's story. That's her journey. That was what God had for her, right? And you can appreciate that, and you can love that, and that can even be inspiring to you. But don't try to be her. Find out how that then relates to your story. So I didn't hate on you for long. I will say that it might have been like a couple of weeks where I was hating.
Wow, John.
But then after that, I was
love
like,
that you told that story.
I will say intuitively, even without hearing that story before, I feel like I just intuitively knew that you had the capacity and propensity to hate on these levels, which is why I refer to you as Dr. Hater. I need for everyone to know this isn't just me talking here.
Right.
He's a admitted hater.
This comes from evidence. There's evidentiary support. So, why that is my name. Yes, that is that. I've never told you that story, but that is absolutely true.
Wow, that's so real, man. I totally get that. I appreciate you being honest about that too. And I don't, that doesn't make me feel bad. It makes me wonder do we feel bad if we hate on people, or should people feel bad? Whatever. I don't know. But I appreciate you telling that story because that's because I remember when you told me that you didn't get in and I felt bad about it. And I was like, dang, how is this possible? And I had the same kind of questions of myself, like, but John is brilliant. And it's just like, they don't get it. They don't understand. They didn't get the picture, you know? And then also at the same time, your story is a different story, you know? And so it's both of those things. But I was disappointed too. I was just like, what is that? Like, that's crazy, you know, because I have the same type of admiration and respect for you. And I didn't think it made sense. And yeah, there's so many things I could say, even about like how getting into Harvard and just feeling like what all that meant. And, you know, what I can say though, is I felt nothing but love from you, John. So if you did feel like a hater, you never, there was never a moment where I felt that at all. Like, it's always been love.
Oh, for sure. I hit it pretty well. I did. I hit it pretty well, but it might have been a couple of weeks I was but I say all that to say though, like, I think in some ways it can be healthy. And I think if we're all honest with each other, we probably hated on a friend or a colleague, or and that's not the first time. This is just a time I'm sharing, but there's actually a colleague that I have that I gotta like scroll past this person's stuff and all of that, because sometimes I could find myself being a hater sometimes. So I think if we're all honest, you know, but I don't know, is it okay? Like, is it okay to be a hater sometimes, and to what extent?
It's interesting that we're having this conversation now because I, of course, you know, still have friends from doctor school. And one of the reasons that I chose the school that I did was because I had heard that it was a very collegial, collaborative environment. And so I knew that I didn't want to be in a place where I felt like I had to shield myself from haters, where I had to, you know, be constantly in these sorts of like unspoken competitions with people. Like, I just didn't want that. Like, that's just not healthy for, like, some people thrive in that. That's not where I thrive. So I didn't want that for myself. And that was a sort of environment that it didn't feel unhealthy. Of course, you know, if let's say I got a publication, like, people will be like, well, dang, you know, I want a publication too, but it didn't feel unhealthy in a way. It was like, you got this, you have inspired me to want to get this. Like, I'm recognizing that people are saying I should have this. Like, maybe you could tell me how to get it, or, you know, it felt very healthy.
Right.
You know, if I noticed that with other people, I'd be like, well, put me on. Like, what do I need to do? And, you know, I'm gonna try it and see what happens. But in either case, like, talking to a friend and colleague, I'm understanding that, like, the nature of the program and like programs generally are just kind of shifting. I think part of that is because they're becoming like more competitive to get into, and the job market is becoming more competitive. Like, even in speaking about the pandemic, there were several searches that like got shut down. And so people were just kind of out there. You know, I'm thinking about how even you said, John, like, people were saying like, you need a publication to be hired, and you graduated, you know, before me. When I graduated, it was not, you need a publication, you need like 2 or 3 to even like get a look, you know. And so things are becoming more competitive, and because of that, that could force you to look at the people closest to you to take that out on. Like, I think where it becomes unhealthy and dangerous is when you allow those feelings to like consume you and propel you into negative directions, where you're like sabotaging other people or speaking ill on their name. I think that's where it becomes like really unhealthy and unhelpful for anybody.
Yeah, it depends on what you do with the hate. Like, are you a hater from afar, or are you an active hater where you're like typing stuff online, or you like telling people, and you know, you know, if you want to, I don't know, maybe that's the difference. You got haters who they like quietly sit and just be looking at your junk and you be like, man, this motherfucker. Or are you like the hating ass active hater who is doing stuff to sabotage and tear a person down? I think that is that's definitely a distinction.
Yeah.
Because the latter, I think, is very it's very unhelpful, dangerous, harmful. I think the former, like you've been saying, John, there is because I remember reading something about jealousy and envy and the difference between those two, and even covetousness, right? So it's like when I don't remember all the definitions completely, but it's like the idea of envy is that there's something about what that person has or experiencing that you want. And so what can happen sometimes is it's revealing your own desires. So it's like if you feel that little trigger inside of you that's just like, hey, I want what that person has, you might not have known that that was really something that you actually wanted for real. And so it's like, okay, I didn't realize that that was significant for me. And so I feel like in that sense, envy, hateration can be holleration. Okay, anyway, envy in that way. It can be informative and instructive. Jealousy is when you feel like you should, like somebody is taking something away from you. And so I feel like that's where you get all of these affirmative action cases against Harvard and against these places, because they're like, man, because you're letting all the Negroes and Hispanics in, you're not letting the Asians in. It's just like you feel like I should be in that place, and so that's jealousy, and that's not helpful actually, because it's just like, everybody has their own story. John, you didn't sign a petition against Princeton and be like, or file a lawsuit saying, you did not accept me because of this, this, and this, and you let some other person in my space necessarily, and that I feel like that's trash. And it's funny that we talk about being a hater, because me and my boyfriend talk about this all the time, because early on he would call himself a hater, and then I'm just like, the more I was with him and was listening to him, I'm like, it's really because you're deep down a lover. Like you love this stuff so much, you have to hate on this stuff. So he's a musician. And so of course, I feel like the music industry is a place where people hate on each other all the time, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like, oh, this stuff is trash, this is trash, or this is trash. The thing is, when you love something so much, or when you like really understand the intricacies of something, I feel like in some ways it's easier to just be like, this is trash, to hate on something, because it's like, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have this is some, I don't care for, I don't like it. All these people out here doing that, they don't even have it together. Like I see that more, and I feel like, is it productive? Is it helpful? I don't know. I think it's formative, again, because it tells you what you really care about. Because if you can say, well, this person used, maybe we can talk about Black capitalism in that way and how we sometimes hate on Jay-Z or whoever else, because it's just like, yeah, this is nice, but you did this, but you did this, but you did this. And so it's because we care about, the community. We care about how you give back to the community. We care about the signs of capitalism. We care about all that kind of stuff. So that's how I see all of that. Like, I feel like hating, there's so many different types of haters and hater situations. And so, so all of that matters. So is it bad to hate? I think it depends on what you're going to do with that hate. And what's the source of the hateration.
But, and that's such a good point. I like how you put that in the spectrum. You talked about jealousy, envy, covetousness. And I would also, and when y'all started talking about Black capitalism, it also brought up some sentiments about the last podcast episode we shot together, where I lost the debate with Dr. Hater, and maybe I was hating again. So I've been hating on y'all for a long time.
Perpetual hater, a habitual hater.
I was hating, boy. But I like what you talked about, because it's can you be a hater out of love? Obviously, I have a deep love for both of y'all, a deep respect for both of y'all. But could there be a certain level of player hating that you have for somebody because you have a love for them, or you have a love for whatever it is, that whatever context it is that you might be hating? Or is it just having an extreme level of competition? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you are a competitive person, like I think about Michael Jordan, or I was just watching a documentary on Kobe Bryant about him being part of the Redeem team in 2008. Him and LeBron, Carmelo, all of them. I was watching that documentary last night, and these are great basketball players, but they're also very competitive. and they don't like when
Mm-hmm.
other people win. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could almost call them haters. Like, I remember when Shaq said when Kobe got one more ring than him, he said, I tore up my entire house. Like, I tore it up. Like, I was throwing stuff everywhere. And he's looking, and Kobe was like, how did you feel when I got that one ring? He was like, I tore up my entire house. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. Like, you know what I'm saying? But they're brothers. Like, they're friends, they're brothers, they love each other. But both of them are competitive. You know what I'm saying? I want to get the most rings. I want to be the greatest. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, when Kobe passed away, Shaq was able to put that in context to be like, I've always said Kobe was one of the greatest, a greatest ball player than me. And he's up there with Jordan. He's up there with LeBron. You know what I'm saying? And I've always said that even though I know I wanted to be great, I wanted to be the most dominant, I have this competitive spirit. Maybe I was hating a little bit, but maybe being a hater is a good part of the love that you have for somebody, or maybe a good part of being a competitive nature, a competitive person, because I don't know if you can be great and not be a hater.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Can you be
I'm
great
thinking
and be
about
a
that.
hater and not be a hater? Wait, Jackie, were you about to say something?
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm just trying to like decide on my answer to that question. Can you be great and not be a hater? I don't know. I think I might be landing on, hate could be what you do to other people. So, or it could be like what you use internally to motivate yourself. Um, and yeah, I'm still not sure. So go ahead, Amber.
Well, I'm thinking about like going back to your question about like, do you hate on people because you want to be them, right? And I think about the Queen Bee Renaissance, amazing album. I'm trying to remember which song it was on. I think it was either on Cozy. Yes, it's on Cozy. It's like she said, I'm cozy, in my skin. And she said, you hate me because you want me. And I think that's a big part of it too. It's like sometimes people don't even know why they just hate a person so much. And it's because it's like you want to be them, or you want to be like them. You want what they have, or whatever. And I think that's where, again, it goes back to like, well, what do you do with that hate? Do you channel it into your own actions, into something where you like bettering yourself? Or are you channeling it into like, man, I hate you. Oh, I gotta kill you, kind of like R.I.P. Selena, and Yolanda. It's like Yolanda, it's like
That's a good part.
you can want what a person is, or just want to possess them, or want to own them so bad that you end up being very dangerous. It's like you only, and we know like in different, abusive relationship situations, it's just like, I hate exes will come back and murder their former spouses or former lovers or whatever, because it's just like they want them, they're hating on their new relationship so hard because it's just like, I need this person to be with me. And that's where hating can get very, very, very dangerous and unhealthy and unhelpful. But it reminds me too of an article that dang it, Serena Williams wrote about her retirement and how I think it was in Vogue. It was just like a few months ago. And something that she was saying was like, she had to win. Like, it was so important for her to be number one, to be the greatest and things like that. And so going to the question of, in order to be one of the greatest, or to be a person who's consistently winning, do you have to kind of be in that mindset of like competition, which then requires you to sometimes be a hater on other people, because she mentioned in the article somebody I've never heard of, but like, man, I knew this person had this many championships, but it's that relationship to these people that it's like, if they have the record that you want, then you're like, man, I don't want them to have the record that I want to be that person. And so I feel like there is hateration there, and I feel like in a sense it has to be activated, especially if you're in a competitive industry or space. And that's actually, reading that article was when I realized like I'm so not a competitive person, because I don't really care about like wanting to be the best or wanting to whatever. I think I hate on other stuff. So this is a transparent moment.
Oh, okay.
So
Transparent moment.
so I've recently started updating my LinkedIn account because that's what everybody says you're supposed to do now. And so I'm like, as much as I don't care for LinkedIn, I know that's just like, if you're trying to make career moves or whatever, this is the place to be. You can make a lot of connections. And so I've been on there, and LinkedIn, just as any other social media, you end up being connected to people from like the past, like people from school, people you don't really care about, but you're just like, okay, let me know, just in case there's a opportunity where the person who I want to connect with. Okay, whatever. So I'm ended up seeing people from my Oakwood college days, Oakwood University days. And there's this one girl who keeps coming up. She'll remain nameless for now. But I remember like every win that she has, it like does something to me. It's like that. And I'm like, what is it? It's just like, oh, I'm on the cover of this. So it's like, I won this award, or I got this degree, or like, now I'm the person for this. It's like, I started my own company, blah, 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 blah. So I think I have to like sit with myself. And I'm like, what is it about this particular girl that like gets under my skin? That it's just like, why do her accomplishments like rub me the wrong way? And why don't what is it about her accomplishments that makes me feel like, instead of being like, okay, go ahead, girl, it's more like, what is it? What she, it's like, and I had to be honest with myself. One of them is because it's just like, I feel like she's doing the things that I want to do, and I haven't done those things. So it's like every time I see a new thing that she does, I'm like, man, I wish I was doing that shit, man. But she keep doing it. And then I think another one was because back in our Oakwood days, she was one of the girls that like all the guys loved, and she just would get so much played. Everybody would always be talking about this girl is like, she's so beautiful, she's so this, she's a model, and I'm just like, I'm just like, you. I mean, yeah, you got all the features that are all the typical features that guys like, that people applaud and love and adore. But I just thought it was like, why is she such a big deal? And I think if I'm being honest. Yep. Yep, you're absolutely right.
I knew somebody else. Yeah, I'm gonna throw it in the chat. But go ahead.
So I was like, okay, but then I was just like, and I think back at Oakwood, I was like, people loves her, and I'm just like, she's okay to me. And so then I had to unpack, and I was unpacking this recently with a friend, because I'm like, what is it about this particular thing? And I think it was being at Oakwood, I did not get a lot of play at all. And speaking of, that's literally my friend who I was just talking to about it.
Oh wow.
Danny Boo Dizzle Bits, you gave her that, John, Danielle Latouche. But anyway, back I was talking to her about this whole thing, trying to process. And so I realized, like, I think another reason why she bothered me as a person was because she got so much attention from guys and stuff, and from everybody at Oakwood. I wasn't one of those girls who got that kind of attention. And I was just, and I think it was me, recognizing my own like insecurity about my appearance and about the attention that I got from guys, and then it being deflected onto the person who was the center of attention for people, and just being like, I think it's like, it's my own insecurity about not having attention. I think it's also me being just angry about how superficial I think people can be about, like, it's these specific features that qualify anybody to be like the baddest, and it's just like, I felt like we don't look at beauty outside of the box enough. And so I think that was another thing that I'm like, she ends up being, the kind of the deflection to that, but she's not like, I don't have a problem with her. Like, I don't know her at all. It's like, she's not somebody I have a connection with at all, but it's like, I think she was representing all of those things. And also because she's like super smart. So it's like, she's super smart, she's super pretty or whatever. And I'm just like, man, I want to be known as super smart, super pretty, but I can't have both of those things because of just the way that I don't line up with societal expectations or whatever. And so I've had to like, just be like, you know what? Here's the thing. If I keep feeling this hateration inside of me about this woman who I don't know, who I don't care about in the greater scheme of life at all, let me just unfollow and not see her stuff, because I'm going to work I have to work. I realize she's not the issue. It's all of the other things that I'm feeling about myself, and so I don't want to, keep seeing a source of something that is like unresolved things in myself. Like that's not actually helpful. So I'm like, I don't need to see her updates. And then I
Mhm.
also looked at it like there are other things doing that it's like, well, she's putting herself out there in order to get those things done. And so it's like, Amber, are you willing to do the same thing? And it's like,
Mhm.
excuse me, I am not. And so it's just like that's also like that charge to myself of like, she's getting where she's getting because she's doing stuff you're not doing.
Mhm.
So what you gonna be mad for? And it's like, well, that's true. And so,
Mhm.
all right, let me remove the source of the hateration because what's the point? Like, I don't know her at all. So it's just like, let me work through my own stuff. So yeah, that's the source of hateration. And I'm like, I realized I'm like with her in particular, that was me being a hater, and I had to unpack it for myself. And I think it's funny, John, that you knew somebody too who was hating on her because I feel like she's probably one of those people who a lot of people would hate on for so many different reasons.
Mm.
Real quick, I don't know if Jackie wanted to respond, but we heard everything you said. It was free flowing, but your internet sometimes got choppy, Amber. So I don't know if you want to check your
Uh-oh.
connection to make sure
Okay.
it's in your internet or maybe somebody else's connection. But did you want to respond, Jackie, or are you still thinking through?
No, it just reminded me that like I can think of, because I was thinking, I'm like, is there somebody that I hate on? And there are a couple people who I think I do hate on. But the last point that you said, Amber, about um how they put themselves out there leads leads to like something that I don't even necessarily think I want. I don't necessarily think I want to do, nor do I think I want what they have. Um, but I I think of like, a couple people who um like the pattern of why I hate on them is all the same. It's
Mm.
like they do something that I consider to be extremely basic. And then they get like accolades for it. Like people are like, this is the
Oh,
greatest thing. And I
yeah.
mean, I feel like we all kind of know somebody like that who's like,
So
all
true.
right, you you put a hat on and people
Yeah.
are like, this is the height of fashion. I'm like, they got this from Walmart. Like,
Right,
why?
right. Why is
Why is
you
it so special?
right,
You
right.
know? And so that certainly makes me hate in unhealthy ways, because then I'll be like, I'll knock that hat off. Like, why?
That Brooklyn is
Why?
coming out, boy.
Like, what? Why are you getting like these accolades and stuff? I think about like, I remember this one time, like I attended this presentation. Of course, doctor school, all that stuff. You go on to conferences and whatnot all the time. So I went to this presentation and I was like, they ain't hitting on nothing. But like there were a lot of people who were like affirming them. Of course, like basically like the chair of the session was like, oh, this is phenomenal work. And I'm like, they ain't said nothing. Like they're just a charismatic person,
Right.
and that's it. And I, of course, kept those feelings to myself. But then I had another colleague come up to me after. They were like, why are they getting so much credit? Like they wasn't hitting on it. Like the points that they were making were basic, like,
Mhm.
we should all strive to be better people, were like some of the points. And I'm like, why
Right.
is this be like, this is profound? Is it really?
Is it really?
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I'm really getting into my hater spirit right now. Anyway, when I think about that, I feel like that is something that is like a hate trigger for me.
Mm.
When I see people doing stuff that I consider to not be like super deep, super profound, super original, getting like this credit, like these things are those things. It makes me feel like, why is everyone sipping on this Kool-Aid?
Mhm.
And then how that like relates to like my own sort of like thought process. When those things happen, I have to think about like a couple things. Like Amber is onto something. Like one of the things that I notice about those people is like they're constantly putting that stuff out there.
Yes.
Like, oh, look at my hat. Like I was able to do this, or I went to this store. Like, look at my this, or I did this, I did that. And of course, that just kind of builds that following of like, oh, what is this person doing? Like, it helps them to make like those connections. So even if you're doing like something that, might not get credit if it was from someone else, because of the fact that you like know someone, you've made a connection, then you're able to like get to wherever you want to go. And I don't think that's necessarily me. Like, I don't feel like I want to be in a place where I'm constantly trying to like forge those, like, it doesn't feel genuine to me. So I don't feel like I want to force it to be.
Right.
And then secondly, like some of the things that they have done, some of the places that they've been, like the networks that they're a part of, conferences, et cetera, et cetera. I had to really be honest with myself and say, like, is this something that I really want? When I think about like, I'm just gonna like make something up, but let's say that I had somebody who went to do like got some sort of award to go do some project in like Australia or something like that, or like China or something like that. There have been times where those sorts of things have happened, and I've been like, oh man, I'm such a hater. I really wish I could have it. And then I had to like reckon with myself and be like, I don't even want to go to like China or Australia. Like if someone gave me a free trip to go to these places, I'd be like, I don't know. Like, is there another option for me to go to someplace else?
Right.
When I think about all the things that kind of live in Australia that could kill you, I'm like, that's not on my list of places to go. And when I think about like when I think about like China, I'm like, is there even gonna be stuff for me to like eat and do? Like these are not places.
A lot of pork.
Yeah. I'm like, this not, it's not places that I want to be.
Right.
So I have to really like collect myself and not be a hater in those ways, because I'm like, what they have you don't even really want for real. You're like genuinely just being a hater right now. Like they have this thing, you don't even want it, but you just don't want them to have it because you're being petty and a hater.
Yeah, and that's so, I understand that idea of you see it, you want it, but then you also have to come to that idea of, or come to that conclusion, what am I willing to do what they're doing? And it also, I think it's kind of like a reason why, and now that I'm thinking through it, maybe that's the reason why sometimes I'm a little overly humble, because instead of doing what these people do, right? Everybody who you said, and I have a person as well, where this person is in the same, kind of academic field as me, but has been very successful in a lot of ways for a very long time. You know what I'm saying? Has, reached goals and reached a certain status in the field, in academia. And we kind of started around the same time. We hustled around the same time, and this person just took off. And while I am proud of my career, I'm seeing what this person has done and how this person is just taking off and skyrocketed. And I'm just like, I didn't do that. Granted, and this person is very vocal about their accomplishment. Literally every little single thing that they do, they talk about it. Every little single thing that they do, they post it. And like you said, it probably leads to them getting more and more opportunities. Also, this person knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they did the exact thing to get them to where they wanted. And so now they're in a very solid place in their career. And so yeah, I, just like you all, I kind of had that hateration kind of spirit where I didn't unfollow them, but I had to, whenever I would see certain posts by them, I wouldn't read them. I would just kind of keep scrolling or whatever. And then certain ones I might like or comment or whatever. But then I also had to ask myself a lot of those similar questions, like, well, why do you feel this way? Is it something within you? And most importantly, are you willing to do what they've done to get to that point? And they have created a success for themselves inside of their career, but I don't necessarily want what they have. And I have to tell myself that they've reached a level, but I don't really care to reach that level. I actually want to kind of go this person's way and then do it differently. But also because I know the spirit that seeing those posts and hearing what this person says often brings up in me. I'm extremely, I go to the extreme. I don't talk about nothing that I do. I don't post nothing that very rarely do I post anything about what I do. So every post that I've had or that I put out there about something I've accomplished, I probably accomplished 5 or 6 things in between that time that I just don't talk about. But if I did talk about every single thing, it will probably look like this person. But I also know that to me and to other people, this person may look extremely braggadocious, or this person may look like they're full of themselves, or like you said, Amber, this particular young lady may look like she's full of herself or whatever, but it also may lead to other opportunities. And so I think the way I've dealt with it is just trying to go on the other side and say that I'm being humble by not saying anything, when in reality, maybe it's just my response to my own hateration. Maybe me being humble is me just how I'm dealing with the fact that I'm really hating on somebody.
Yeah, it could be. And like it's your way of, it's like your defense mechanism for yourself. It's like your self-protection to be like,
right,
jealous of this person, but you're gonna act like or you're really scared to put yourself out there, or you're really, or whatever, or you really haven't figured something out, but you're hating, or you're a coward, or you are envious, but you're humble. It's under the guise of like, it's being
under
humble.
the guise of being humble.
When but it's like that's the way that you have to protect yourself, because and that's what people do. People try to protect themselves at all costs. It's self-preservation. And so I think too, for myself, it was a good exercise to look at her stuff, because it's like it wasn't to not look at her stuff. It was a good exercise to finally like sit and ask myself, what is it about this person? Like, because it's like it ain't got nothing to do with her for real. It's just like, what is it in me that is being activated or agitated because of this thing? And I remember, how people say I feel like it's a few different things. It's like, if there's something in a person that aggravates you or upsets you, it's probably because that thing is in yourself some kind of way. Or it's like the thing that aggravates you the most or that you hate the most is probably one of your unconscious habits. It's probably a way that people actually pick up on you. And so I think it's just like, another way people say that same kind of idea is that basically your interaction with the person is a mirror to yourself. Like you're seeing something in you, otherwise you would be unbothered. Because it's like, other people, here's the thing. There's other people who are accomplished.
I was gonna say that. What is it about that person? Because there's other accomplished people.
It's like there's other people who I think are beautiful, who accomplish things from Oakwood, who also got attention from lots of guys, and they're not the person that is on my radar that that hateration. But part of it also might be because I'm not seeing whatever stuff they're doing. And that's where I think social media has such a role in hateration.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Because literally it'll be people you do not care about. It's like, it's like, you're not even the person who I think is the smartest, the brightest, the most competitive, whatever. And I'm not trying to hate on her in that way. I'm just saying, like, in the scheme of things, it's like, sure, there are other people who I think are way more interesting that I think it would even make more sense for me to hate on, but I don't have a window into their lives, right? It's like, social media, they're not posting, so I don't know what's happening in their lives in order for me to hate on them.
Right.
Like, yo, this is I feel like social media just like encourages people to just hate on each other. And then like you were saying, John, I'm like, do I want to? I think the other thing about it is I feel like, and this is an insecurity, it's like I feel like people might have expected more out of me, especially when it comes to like posting on social media or my accomplishments or where I have gone. And so I think that's my own kind of like seeing other people progress. It's that reminder of like, it's like, should I be there?
Did people expect me to be doing that same thing?
Like, for for me to be doing this thing. It's just like, oh, Amber's smart, so you should have, you should have your own company by now. You should have, whatever else. Why didn't you do this? And so I think it's me also feeling like I'm not feeling the shoes that I think people wanted me to.
People want it. Got you.
But I think it's all of those things. And it's just like, that has way more to do with me than it has to do with that person.
Right.
Ooh.
Especially after Harvard, where I'm like, I think the way that I had to maneuver it, and like, I started with the campaign, but I still feel guilty about, like, I never gave like an official update of the
about everything.
Like, how did it all turn out? And there's still like a book, an article. It's like I wanted to like turn my story into like a memoir of sorts, but I'm like, is it too early to share this? But I'm not. But I'm like, yeah, I want to share this experience, the couch to Cambridge experience, living on my family's couch, and then moving up to Cambridge, Massachusetts for Harvard, and everything that went into that. And so it's like, in one way, I feel like I have a debt to all of the people who were supportive and who were excited, because even just like a few months ago, it was a guy who I had not seen in a long time, but he was a part of like the Adventist Atlanta community down here. And the first question he asked was, how was Harvard? And I'm like, that's so in the past for me at this point, but you were there in that period. It was exciting for everybody. And it's like, he's a person who I'm like, I didn't even know you would know that I went. How did you even know that? But I recognize that for my community, it was important, because ain't nobody ever been there.
I never did. Yeah, for sure.
So I think seeing these people with these accomplishments, or who are vocal and who have found a way to manage social media, and all at the same time, y'all all know, we don't know how any of these people are really doing. We don't know how it's always a highlight reel. So who knows if any of this is really great at all. But it's like, in some way, they've been able to manage these accomplishments and manage being on social media and manage all of this stuff. And so it increases that like it increases that time where I'm looking at myself in the mirror and pointing out all of the ways that I'm inadequate. And that's what happens when a lot of times when you look at social media, it's like that mirror of like, this is what I don't have. Look at how you don't have this. Look at this, mole on your resume, or like, look at this like gap or something. It's just like, yeah, hating is real.
Hating is real. And I like that what you said though, because when I think about this particular person that's in the academic field, there are other parts of this person's life that I would not necessarily want. There are moves that they made that I could never make. I don't want it that bad to make those kinds of moves. You know what I'm saying? So that's a very, very good point. It's like, what else, but you don't know these people's full lives. You don't know and then you would be surprised as to, if you were to tell them these things, they might say, actually, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. I'm like, dang, I wish I could do this or that or whatever it is. So it's like you'll be surprised that sometimes that hateration that you might have towards somebody else, they might have that same thing towards you, and it could actually build some type of cohesive bond. You know what I'm saying, between two people or whatever. So again, very similar to like the athletes. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them, admire each other, hate on each other, and then end up being teammates and end up winning championships together. So I don't know. Maybe as as 80s babies, 90s kids growing up during that, stop being a hater era or whatever, and then probably still is going on. I don't know, maybe we need to reevaluate and kind of re-examine how we look at being a hater, because maybe in some ways it could be a good thing.
When you said that, that example, it made me think of she's been on the show, Shelly Wellness, my best friend since college, and I think I've said that, like, we met in financial aid. Like, we were both in the financial aid office. It's like freshman orientation week or whatever week it is. And we're both in there. We obviously don't know each other, but I'm sitting there like looking at her hair and like hating on it, essentially, like, oh, her hair is so beautiful. Like she had this beautiful, like natural hair, like it was just beautiful. And so I'm hating on her hair, and I can't remember which one of us spoke first. It might have been me, it might have been her, but one of us said like, your hair is amazing, and the other one was like, your hair is amazing. And so like we were thick as thieves like ever since then. But to that point of like, you out here hating on somebody and they're like hating on you simultaneously,
right.
and then like a relationship just kind of like blossoms
right
from that.
Right.
But yeah, I think that point about, some of the things that people have to do is certainly made me think about in academia, the path that is like the golden path, like the one that they're like, oh, you should do this and then this and then this. Like in terms of like advancing your career, obviously like the thing to do is to like become like the endowed professor, chair, at the most elite school, and, have the most like books that people are using, and, be an invited speaker at all these different sorts of like elite spaces and all of that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because when I see people who I might be inclined to hate on, like they're obviously like making steps toward that kind of career.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized really early on, like that's not the kind of career I want. And maybe part of it was the fact that, I had done all these other things before I went to doctor school and decided I wanted to be a professor. But once I came to that realization, I was also clear about what kind of professor I wanted to be and what kind of school I wanted to be at.
Right.
My journey didn't include, and I mean, I'm not gonna say like never say never, like in 5-10 years, I might be like, oh, maybe I do want to be like this endowed person at some, elite school, Ivy League or whatever it might be. But for now and for the foreseeable future, like I just want to be where I am, like doing what I'm doing.
Right.
So for me to like hate on people who are doing this like golden path that has been laid out for us, that don't even make sense for like what I say I want to do or be.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? That makes me think about then, like, what was a time when you were hated on and like you knew you were hated on, like for both of y'all? I know of a point for me that I'm like, and I want to see what y'all think about it. Like, I love to know like a moment where you're like, oh yeah, this person was hated. So I'm gonna share mine.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah.
So this one was like, there was this job at the research lab that I work at now, and it was a new position, and there was and the people who were creating the position, you know how like they had already talked to me about it, and it seemed like they probably wanted me for it, but they have to open it up for everybody else. And so it can be fair or whatever. So then I ended up hanging out with this one girl from the school who we connect every now and again. It's pretty cool, whatever. And so we were just hanging out, and I told her about the position. And I was like, yeah, maybe you should, you could apply too. I don't know. Like it's an open position. And I'm just like, it sounds interesting. And so she was like, oh, okay. I was thinking she might have told me that, because I told her about it, and I told her like I'm applying for it and I hope whatever happens. And she was just like, oh, but she didn't say anything about actually being interested in the position. She just was like, oh, okay. So then here I am at the interview. There's a glass wall, and so you can see out into the hallway. And I can see she's walking past, about to be the next interview. But she didn't tell me or anything. And I was thinking this would have been, and I remember, I think in the interview, either they told me she was next or something, because we kind of all know each other, or like like, oh, she's the next interview. And so I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, I think it would have been nice if she was just like, hey, you told me about it. I know you're going for it too. Like, I'm also applying. Well, okay. So she never said that though. So I'm done with the interview. I see her go in for the interview. And I end up getting the job. And so then there's an event where I'm around her again. And so then we're talking about it a little bit. And she's just like, and I was like, because at this point, I don't know if she still directly told me that she applied or whatever. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember what she said to me. She was just like, yeah, well, I guess they just wanted somebody with less experience. and maybe they just wanted somebody who was just a little bit newer and fresher or something like that. And I was like,
That's not necessary.
and I just was standing there like, because she's a little bit older than me, she's definitely more experienced. And I just was thinking, I didn't know what to say. So I was just like, maybe so. Maybe they did want, somebody newer or something. I didn't know how to respond to it at all. But I will never forget that.
Yeah.
And I'll never, and after that, it's just kind of like, you were definitely, that was a dig.
That was a dig for
That was
sure.
a clear dig, because
For sure.
I feel like there could have been another way of saying, like, hey, fellow Black girl, I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you got the role.
Right,
Like, if you need help, if you
Right.
want to think about, like, if I don't know, of course you can be salty because somebody else got the job and you didn't get the job, but like, there's another way to spin that.
For
It can,
sure.
like, I don't know, fake it, I get it, I got it, but you don't have to then be like, well, maybe they just wanted somebody who wasn't as good as me, basically, is what she's saying.
Dang.
That's crazy.
So what do y'all think about that?
Definitely a hater.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Unnecessary too. Like I don't feel any reason to like publicly express hate. Like if someone is doing something that I don't like I can think about many times in professional settings and classes where someone has done or said something that's like racist, sexist, problematic in, whatever way, or, it's just even an idea that I think is a stupid idea. Like, we don't need to do all this, extra work. We could just do it this other way. Like, I don't think that's hating. Like, that's, trying to come to an understanding about something, but to like make a personal attack on someone like that for no reason, because you didn't get what they got, like, that's beneath me.
No, it's interesting you asked that question, because when people, I would see memes and videos and stuff about people talking about their haters. And I remember that one Cat Williams joke where he says, if you got 10 haters, he say the more haters you got, the better. So if you got 10 haters this summer, you need to try to figure out how you can get 20, 30 haters by next summer. You know what I'm saying? Figure out how you can get that new, that new Phantom. Figure out how you can get you a new couple Cuban links. Figure out how you can get that Gucci and see how many more haters you can get. Like, you want to get more and more haters. And so I remember thinking to myself, I ain't got no haters. Maybe I ain't doing something right, because I don't think I got no haters. But then I thought about it and I was like, I feel like I'm a, okay person or whatever. I should have some haters. And then somebody should be hating on me about something. But then I thought about it and I was like, I don't, maybe I do have haters. I just don't know who they are, because I don't surround myself with haters. Or I don't surround myself with people who are hating on me. At least I thought. I was like, I don't know anybody and I don't converse with people on a regular basis who I would get that feeling from. Everybody that I'm around all show me love. You know what I'm saying? They all congratulate me. I don't never get no feeling like how you got from Shorty, Amber, where it's like they taking a dig at me. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember a time where I felt that way, but I will say that I remember this one young lady I was dating, and we were dating pretty serious for a while. She actually admitted to me, and we ended up breaking up like a while, like a long time ago. She admitted to me that while we was together and we was both doing our thing, that she would kind of be slightly jealous of the fact of, because we were so close, she would know about the different things that I was doing. And other people wouldn't. And I remember she said that she kind of was a little bit jealous, you know what I mean? Because we was so close and so she knew more than other people. And I was like, oh wow, and I remember she admitted to that. But I think that's the only time. I don't know if I have haters. I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I feel like in general, I'm oblivious. Like maybe that's a flaw, but like if I do have like a contingent of haters, like I'm hella oblivious to that. But I can think of one example, but I'll share that with y'all after. But it's like a clear hater example. But
Yeah.
when you started talking about your job, Amber, it made me think about when I was working right before I went to doctor school. And the job that I had, they had this interview process, which was basically like a group interview process. So, and at the time, like the the job was a pretty competitive job because of just like the job market and stuff at the time. So it would get like hundreds of applicants for this job. You know, it's an education. And then whatever candidates they selected to interview, y'all all interviewed together. So you're meeting everyone who applied for this job. And like, you know, it's Atlanta, which is big, but it's Atlanta, which is small. So like, you know, and then if you're in a specific field, like there's chances that you know people, whatever, whatever. And so it was at least a good like year after I got the job that I would be running into people, you know, as like a formal part of my job. Like I would be going to events, like I would have like the name tag on, I'm affiliated with this organization, all this kind of stuff. And people would be like, oh, so you got the job there. Interesting. So there were definite like hate in certain situations, like based on that. But I don't think that's like typical. Like usually if you get like a particular job, you don't know who interviewed for it or not. But like
Right.
to literally be in an interview, like, you know, I'm sitting here talking to John and Amber as a part of the interview. And then like a month later, I see them still, you know, on the job market doing whatever they need, whatever y'all need to do. But I, you know, have this job that we obviously all applied for. It was hella awkward. And there was definitely like some moments of like shade slash hate going on like throughout that time. So
Listen, being a hater, I mean, you know what? I think this was a good convo because it helped us to be transparent and vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? About our own hater rate, well, my own hateration towards y'all. And but then at the same time showing, I guess, how being a hater also shows a certain level of admiration, but then it also causes us to look inward. And it's so funny because looking back, even though there were times where I admired y'all's trajectory and your career and things that y'all did, I also equally remember times where I got so much support from both of y'all. So like I've told this story before, but I remember when I gave my defense and I saw Amber was like one of the first people there. And it was the same thing with Jared, actually. I saw Amber and I'm so used to Amber I'm so used to equating Amber with Atlanta. I'm thinking, oh, she just came from Camp Creek. You know what I mean? And I had to think about it. I was like, no, she don't live here no more. She came from, or maybe you was in Baltimore at the time.
No,
but
Boston. I was
in Boston. I was like, she came all the way from Boston. And I just remember like getting real emotional. Like, you know, had to hold it back a little bit. I couldn't let him go, you know what I'm saying? But I remember getting super emotional seeing Amber in my defense, and to travel all that way just for that. And then also I remember, Jackie, with you, and I remember my first major publication, and it was a solo publication. I remember asking you to read it, and you read it, and you gave me, I had asked other people to do it, but you were the only one that gave me feedback. And then it was like a critical piece in there that you were like, if you add this piece, this is what's going to really help set it off. And I remember adding that piece, and that was the piece that helped me get it published. You know what I'm saying? In that journal. So it's okay to hate as long as the love is there. You know what I'm saying? It's okay that
it's a balance.
It's a balance, and surrounding yourself I think it's just about being around people that are just great. And when you around people that's great, you can't help but hate, but you also can't help but love too, and can't help but admire them and appreciate them. And I think it's something that one of y'all said earlier. How do you use it to help fuel yourself and fuel your projection forward? And so I just want to say thank y'all for being people that's worth hating on. You know what I mean?
Wow, John.
That is like the most shady compliment I've ever received. And I would expect it from none other.
None other.
Doctor Hater.
Then you're a boy. You know? So man, how y'all feeling? Y'all hearts and minds is clear? Everybody good?
No, my heart and mind isn't clear because I feel like I gotta admit that I hate on both of y'all slightly because y'all have doctorate degrees and I don't. And I haven't.
Oh no.
You made like a choice. I remember when you came to visit and you were like, this ain't my path. This ain't what I wanted.
But that was, it was Wisconsin. And I and at the same time,
I didn't want to go to Wisconsin. I ain't say I didn't want to be a doctor.
But then at the same time, part of the I think I also like listen to y'all talk about your doctoral experiences. And I still be like, I don't know about this. And I listen to other people too, but there's still like, there's that part of me that's just like, but I want to be a doctor. I want to have a PhD. I want to know what's the experience. Y'all so smart. It's like, I feel like y'all have discipline in a way I don't. And I'm just like, it's kind of like, is it part hate, is part love? It's just like, man, how do they do this? Like, this is like, both of y'all are professors. I think that's so cool. Y'all are such cool people, but you're still down to earth. You are the street academy, you know? And so that part of me that's just like, man, I want to be like them, you know? So there's a little bit of hateration love in me for both of y'all for that reason.
Well, the hate comes right back because I mean, you heard us talk about the doc experience, like regardless of who you are, like you have to compress yourself into a box, that like doctoral box. And Amber, you don't fit in nobody's box. And I think listening to you kind of like externally process, like, is this what I want for myself? What I heard is like, this is a boxing in process and I'm not a boxing in person. I don't think this is where I need to be. And I'm like, dude, again, like, you know, is this something that I want for myself in terms, like, it's certainly aspirational to me. Like, sure. I don't want to feel or like be classified as that person who's like gonna like conform to whatever. But you have to like do doctor school. And I think, you know, you being like, I don't want to conform in these ways is aspirational because it's something that like I continue to struggle with, like even at the beginning of the conversation, talking about like the assimilation part, like knowing that you have to fit in this box in order to be successful. Yeah. But for you, Amber, you're like, no, I see the box and I don't want to be in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me sprinkle a little hate on you right quick.
So yeah, I think it's something beautiful about it. Like we all just said, just depend on how we use it, how we do it. So
yeah, I think so. And like you said, John, that was a really sweet way of saying it was the best back. You know, it's like we're people that. What did you say? Dang, my brain keeps messing up.
Thank y'all for being people that's worth hating on.
Yeah.
Hating on and then it also makes me wonder, like, do we need to get more haters? Like, am I accomplished enough to have more haters?
Look, that's what Cat Williams said. He said we need to get some more haters.
Listen, he is
let me throw on this Gucci. Let me get another perm.
He is practiced at being hated on and coming back at those haters. R.I.P. to Wanda, because your spirit has still not come back after Cat Williams destroyed her.
Oh man.
Wanda, what's her last name?
That's so true, Jackie. My goodness.
Wanda, she was the host on V103.
V103.
And then she went back and forth with Cat Williams and
Cat. I remember watching that, and I was sweating for her. I was like, this is so bad. She never recovered. I don't think her career ever recovered from that.
No. And I knew it was.
You gotta watch it, Amber. I'm gonna throw it in the chat, but you gotta watch it.
Yeah, I knew it was bad because I heard like a couple days later, like her husband pulled like a gun on him. And I'm like,
Yes.
that's bad if like you get, it's not even like a threat. He didn't threaten her or anything like that. He just said what he said. And it was so embarrassing that her husband had to go find him and pull a gun on him.
Yeah, I'm saying this now after getting into a comedy smackdown with people.
Yeah, it wasn't even close.
Yeah,
But he's a
so
comedian. You gotta know, and he's not even just a comedian. He's a street comedian. Like he you can't
he
can't
has
beat Cat
a
Williams with
special
them
set of
words.
skills.
He got a special set of a special set of skills to where you can't beat him with them words. You just you need to just let it go. Hey, bro,
I
you
mean,
got it.
any man who got like a little bob perm, you can't go toe
You
to
can't
toe
go
with
toe to
him.
toe with it. With a
I
nigga.
don't want no smoke. I don't want no smoke with you.
It's really true though. Anybody,
You can't do it with them.
Right.
I'm not really gonna do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you gotta watch that after we get off this show. So,
All right then.
we good? So it's been another episode, y'all. Street Academy Podcast, where we keep one foot in the academy and one foot in the streets. Incredible episode, great conversation, a lot of transparency, a lot of vulnerability. We appreciate y'all joining us. Keep liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting. Man, and yeah, tell us what y'all want us to talk about. Huh?
I said keep hating.
Keep hating.
Keep hating in the best of ways.
Keep hating and let
That's
that
it.
hate fuel, that hate that you give other people fuel you to success. Also let the hate that people give you fuel you to success. So we
There it is.
we talked about both of those. So that's what it is, y'all. Appreciate y'all for joining us. You can catch us on anywhere you see podcasts, Apple Podcasts, I think, Google, all that other stuff, YouTube, where you can see the video. And we out. Peace. Jackie, I was
That you know got their feet upon the neck of the haters, the game and the devil like came in.
You asked the question, when have we ever felt
Assimilated.
Had to assimilate?
Like had to assimilate, and you saw yourself and you're like, oh yeah, this is some fake. Either it's some fake stuff, or it's like I'm like suppressing the black side, or my blackness, or something like that.
Right. I've gotten to the point now where like I'm gonna tell a story, but I've gotten to the point now where even when I kind of do it subconsciously, I can't hide it. My blackness just ooze out.
I was gonna say it's very difficult for you.
It's very difficult for me. Like even when I try to slightly change my voice just a little bit, try to, it come out. And so but I still try to a little, but not as much as I did in this one particular situation. So I was a doctoral student. I can't remember if I told this story on this podcast before, but I was a doctoral student. I was working really hard. I was getting good grades in my classes. But for some reason, I was not, maybe in my first or second year, I wasn't getting the opportunities that a lot of my colleagues, and it actually leads me to another question I want to ask. So remind me, that's kind of related to this, which I think will be a dope topic if y'all want to for this episode. But it led, I started thinking, and I was like, man, I'm not getting the same opportunities that my colleagues are getting. You know, professors are reaching out to them, asking them for, asking them to co-author with them. They're getting book chapters opportunities, they getting publishing opportunities in their first and second year, and I ain't got nothing. You know what I'm saying? They're getting opportunities to get fellowships, and all of this stuff is important, you know what I'm saying, as you're getting your PhD, because it's setting you up for your career, setting you up for a great tenure track. And one of the things that they always tell you, you don't want to graduate and not have no major publications. Even if it is a co-authorship, you want to have something. And so it's going to be very hard for you to get a tenure track and not have that, right?
Correct.
And so that's what I was working on it for the first 2 years. I couldn't get it. And I asked one of my homeboys, who was a black guy, and he was unapologetically black, but he had this way of making white people feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And And he was from, I don't want to exactly say because then people will be able to find out who he was, but I'll say he was from the East Coast. He was from more up north, and he going to an Ivy League school. So he was very much familiar with how to, yeah. He was very much familiar with like how to like navigate whiteness. And I'm not from that. I'm from Duval, North Side, poor working class ghetto area, HBCUs, you know what I'm saying? So I ain't used to knowing how to make white people feel comfortable. So I'm coming into my classrooms, coming into my professor's offices with a big Africa medallion chain, tall, big, black, the way that I talk, even though I'm smart, even though clearly I know what I'm doing, even though my papers is tight, my presentation, he was like, your presentation is a little off-putting. People scared of you. And I'm like, why would they be scared of me? I ain't hurt nobody. I ain't got in a fight in a long time. At the time, I ain't carry no guns.
You're a doctoral candidate.
I'm in a doctoral program. Like, why are you?
Come on.
What are you afraid of? So he was.
And these are sociologists. Like
these are sociologists, right?
Race, right.
Right.
Okay.
These aren't biology majors.
That know nothing about like social constructs.
Right. Exactly. So I'm like, why would they be afraid? So I thought about that. And I said, you know what? I said, okay, I'm gonna pull it back a little bit. Let's see if I can adjust myself. Let's see if I can change the way I talk, change the way I dress. I took off I wouldn't wear my African medallion to classes anymore. I don't think I had this tattoo at the time, but you know, I switched it up a little bit. I don't know if I wore my beard as thick. I might have thinned it down a little bit. You know, dressed a different way when I came to class, talked to my professors, laughed at all the corny ass white jokes. Like I did all of that because I wasn't doing that before. I'm like, shit is lame. You know what I'm saying? But I would laugh at the jokes. I would go to the events. I would go to their homes. I would, you know, try to eat the food. You know what I'm saying? Like I would do what I could to try to like make them feel comfortable. Yeah. I did that for about a year and a half. I did it for about a year and a half. And after that year and a half, guess what happened in terms of the
Nothing.
I still wasn't getting no book chapters. I still wasn't getting no co-authorships. I still wasn't getting no deal. Some professors had came to me and asked me to do stuff. I did a lot of work, but nothing ever came out of it. They'll be like, after like, benefit. I ain't get no benefit. 6 months later, they'll be like, you know, we decided not to do that project no more. I'm like, bruh, I done did all this work for you and you woke up one day and said you don't want to do this no more. I could have been putting this time towards something else. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. And so at the end of that, as I'm going into my dissertation and getting ready to, you know, do my own research and graduate, I made a promise to myself that I would never do that again. I would never, ever, ever try to change myself, change who I am, you know, make an adjustment here and there, you know, strategically, sure. But I'm never going to change myself again because guess what? It don't matter. A lot of times it ain't gonna matter. You probably gonna get the same. If people don't like you, if people don't dig you, if people don't mess with you, it's because they just don't mess with you. So you might as well be yourself. You might as well be comfortable in your skin. You might as well do it. If you're gonna be successful, do it your way. Yeah. And once I decided to do that, I changed it. By the time I graduated, I still didn't have no major publications. Nothing changed. But once I started to find my own voice, find my own style, started to be strategic and getting opportunities outside of my department, going outside of my school, reaching into my community, finding ways to be creative about how I made my moves, stuff started happening.